The anime opened within a tranquil, nearly silent forest where a solitary house stood as a stark feature in the landscape. It was there that we were introduced to Ryo Mihara, who, having just awoken, decided to step outside and observe his new surroundings. As he took in the verdant scenery, he almost reflexively recited a simple spell, causing a small amount of water to materialize in his palm. This peaceful scene was a stark contrast to the confusion that had marked his arrival. In a flashback, Ryo had awoken suddenly, completely disoriented by his unfamiliar environment. A man had emerged from a thick fog, informing him that this place was not the afterlife. Once the fog cleared and they could see each other, the man asked if his name was Ryo, which he confirmed. The stranger seemed relieved by the answer, mentioning it had been a long time since he had encountered anyone. He then gently informed Ryo that he had lost his life in an accident. Surprisingly calm, Ryo acknowledged that he remembered it, surmising he had likely been hit by a vehicle. He then inquired if the man before him was God, but the stranger explained that he was closer to what one would call an angel and offered to clarify any doubts. Ryo, deciding to call the man Michael, stated that since he was to be reincarnated, he wished to understand what awaited him. Michael replied that Ryo could choose to live as he wished, free from mandatory missions or a predestined fate. This revelation made Ryo pause and reflect. He then expressed his desire for a quiet, light, and peaceful life. Michael revealed that Ryo's new life would be in a world called Phi, where magic existed. In this world, 1 in every 5 people was born with magical abilities, and Ryo's elemental affinity would be water. To ensure the tranquil life he desired, he would be placed in the Rondo Forest, where a house, already prepared with a 2-month supply of provisions, awaited him. Back in the present, Ryo examined a stock of frozen food and correctly deduced that magic must be responsible for its preservation. Michael had also explained that a magical barrier would protect the house from monsters. While exploring his new home, Ryo discovered an encyclopedia of creatures and another of plants. Despite not recognizing the script, he found it strange and interesting that he could comprehend everything perfectly. As he began his first tests with magic, Ryo soon realized that vocal incantations were unnecessary. He only needed to visualize the desired effect. This was a minor disappointment, as he had always found the idea of shouting spell names exciting. Another small frustration was his inability to produce anything but cold water, which prevented him from enjoying a relaxing hot bath. With no other option, he attempted to start a fire with twigs, but quickly gave up on the laborious process. He then shifted his focus to freezing the water in a bucket, but this also met with failure. Determined to create ice to eventually form freezing lances, he began to visualize the water's molecular structure, concentrating on decreasing its thermal energy to precisely join the oxygen and hydrogen molecules. When he finally succeeded, he mentally celebrated, thanking the principles of hydrogen bonds for his achievement. He then cleverly molded the ice into a lens, which he used to concentrate sunlight onto the wood, successfully creating fire. As night fell, Ryo enjoyed a hot bath, recognizing the significant progress he had made on his very first day. He thoughtfully concluded that if he could manipulate molecules to create ice, the same reasoning should allow him to produce hot water. He admitted that magic was extremely useful and perceived that he had a vast amount of exploration ahead of him. The next day, while preparing some meat, Ryo remembered that Michael had only guaranteed his food supply for 2 months. After that period, he would have to fend for himself. Knowing the forest beyond the barrier was likely teeming with monsters, he understood that a simple knife would not suffice for protection. He needed offensive spells. That night, Ryo went outside to practice and cast his first sphere of water. Although it wasn't very powerful, he felt a thrill seeing the spell manifest. Seeking improvement, he switched to a jet of water, imagining a thin, fast stream. However, he only managed to produce a weak jet with a short range. He recalled asking Michael how magic worked, and the angel's clear answer was that it required precise visualization and experience. Inspired by this, Ryo decided to repeat the jet spell relentlessly. Hours passed, and he began to see progress. Upon returning home, he successfully applied the reverse process of ice formation to heat water, and despite burning himself slightly, he was satisfied with his success. The following day, he attempted to create ice directly from the moisture in the air. The task was slow, but he succeeded. Excited, he summoned an ice lance, but the effort was too great, and he fainted immediately after it formed. He understood from this limitation that he was not yet ready for a real fight and decided to intensify his training. He conjured spells repeatedly, maintaining a steady rhythm until sunset. When exhaustion finally brought him to his knees, he realized he had completely depleted his magical energy. That night, he learned another important lesson. He needed to make fire while there was still sunlight, as it was his only method. Without it, he went without dinner. In the days that followed, his continuous practice paid off. He became capable of creating his ice lance with speed, though its range remained short. Nevertheless, he felt it was time to venture beyond the protected area. With his magic lance in hand, Ryo finally crossed the barrier. Advancing through the forest, he reached a river where he found quartz, a resource he had been seeking to create fire without sunlight. With this secured, he decided to look for a medicinal herb to consider his mission a success. At that moment, he came face to face with a lesser boar. Startled, his body froze in fear. The image of the creature charging at him finally broke his paralysis, and he threw himself to the side, narrowly escaping. As the monster prepared for another attack, he remembered his training. He created a trail of ice on the ground, causing the boar to slip and slide toward him. As a final measure, he formed a series of lances directly in front of himself, creating a shield of sharp points. The monster, unable to stop in time, collided with the barrier and was defeated on the spot. That night, Ryo returned home and consulted the monster encyclopedia. He discovered that the boar he had faced was considered the weakest type of monster. However, 2 pages at the end of the basic volume caught his attention. They contained special records about dragons, creatures capable of destroying entire cities with ease. The book's only advice upon spotting a dragon was to flee as fast as possible, though it noted even that was unlikely to succeed. There was also information about imps, mysterious beings of unknown origin, with the notes simply suggesting that one should pray for survival if encountered. Ryo questioned the immediate usefulness of this knowledge, but upon reflection, realized just how full of dangers and mysteries his new world was. Later, while gathering fruit, he was ambushed by a winged monster. After dodging an initial attack, the enemy unleashed a blast of wind that luckily missed him. Ryo began to flee, creating ice shields along the way to hinder the pursuit. Observing the creature more closely, he recognized it as an assassin hawk, which used an invisible wind magic called Air Slash and also attacked with its beak and claws. With no chance of escape, Ryo decided to confront the beast. He stopped running and began launching several water jets at it. The monster dodged nimbly in the air and then dove for an attack at increased speed. In response, Ryo created a suspended block of ice, causing the hawk to collide with it and fall to the ground. As Ryo approached to continue the fight, the monster recovered quickly and took to the air again. It was then that he noticed the assassin hawk had an injured eye. After a few moments, the monster turned and flew away. With the danger gone, Ryo finally collapsed, exhausted. He had spent so much time fleeing that he had gotten lost. While trying to find his way back to the cabin, he came across a strange light in the forest. As he drew closer, he saw a frightening sight: a headless man in armor riding an equally decapitated horse, a Dullahan. The next day, Ryo continued his explorations, eliminating creatures that crossed his path until, after much effort, he finally found his cabin again. From then on, he established a routine of hunting, gathering supplies, and training his magic. On one of these days, he discovered a beach. He cautiously entered the sea, but was immediately surprised by a huge creature rising from the depths, prompting a hasty retreat from the water. He later developed a spell he called Abrasive Jet, a super concentrated blast of water capable of cutting through rock with precision. Following this, he discovered that by hardening ice with magic, he could turn it into a granular abrasive. One night, armed with a newly crafted ice sword, he decided to return to the place where he had seen the Dullahan, knowing it was a powerful monster. Ryo took the initiative and attacked first, but the Dullahan blocked all his blows with ease. In a counterattack, Ryo protected himself with an ice shield, but was still thrown back by the sheer force. The Dullahan exploited an opening and struck his side, knocking him to the ground. He accepted that he could not win the fight at his current level, but since he had survived, he resolved to return every night, sensing that the Dullahan, in its own way, wished to train him. The Dullahan then transformed its own water sword into ice and offered it to Ryo. As Ryo reached for it, the weapon returned to its liquid form. Ryo understood the lesson. the Dullahan wanted him to learn how to manifest and maintain such a weapon himself. As he held the water sword, the Dullahan simply returned to the nearby lake. While exploring the forest again, Ryo encountered another flying monster. He suspected it was the same hawk due to the scar over its eye, and concluded it must have evolved. The creature fired a long-distance attack, confirming Ryo's suspicion. It was indeed the same enemy, but now much stronger. He quickly erected a 5-layered ice wall, but a single attack destroyed it. While dodging projectiles, he tried to retaliate with his ice lance, but the hawk evaded it easily. The monster then cast a spell that neutralized one of his barriers. Seeing the enemy stationary in the air, Ryo was suddenly surprised by a lightning bolt from the sky. He dodged but lost his lance in the process. The hawk charged with its claws, and Ryo responded by drawing his newly created ice sword, blocking the relentless attacks with the improvised blade. When the monster retreated to gain momentum for a more powerful strike, Ryo remained calm and focused. As the creature dove, he managed to thrust the sword directly into its body, felling the monster. Ryo now understood its resentment. He was the one who had blinded its eye, and the hawk had grown stronger for the sole purpose of facing him again. Out of respect for his adversary's pride, Ryo gave the duel a worthy end by removing the sword from the creature's body. Shortly after, a huge dragon flew over the forest. On his way home, Ryo was surprised when the being landed directly in front of him. The dragon spoke to him telepathically, asking if he had seen a bird that had evolved from an assassin hawk. Ryo confirmed that he had and apologized if it was the dragon's subordinate, as he had just defeated it. The dragon, however, congratulated him and commented on the curious sword at his waist. It revealed to Ryo that it was the sword of the Fairy King, explaining that for the Dullahan to have given it to him meant he was held in high regard. Ryo took the opportunity to ask some questions. Before departing, the dragon revealed its name was Lewin, and Ryo introduced himself in turn. In another location, Michael, the angel, was observing Ryo's progress. He discovered that the boy carried a hidden attribute, something he had not expected, as the last similar case had occurred over 10,000 years ago. Michael then revealed Ryo's hidden attribute to be eternal youth, bringing the first chapter to a close.